Welcome into episode 4 of the Brierchat podcast. I'm Cam Huffman, Director of Public Relations here at the Greenbrier, and as you can probably tell behind us, it's summertime officially here at the Greenbrier. The heat's coming down on us, and I forgot to wear sunglasses, so it's going to be, you have to put up with me squinting during this episode. But I'm thrilled to be joined by our new Director of Instruction here at the Greenbrier Golf Academy, Stephen Cox, and we're going to get to know you a little bit today, get to learn about your background, get to know a little bit about your teaching philosophies and what you bring to the Greenbrier. So we were thrilled to have you, and I guess the first thing to say is welcome here to the Greenbrier.
No, I appreciate that. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start back at the beginning. Where did you grow up? How did you kind of first get into the game of golf?
Sure. So I grew up in the Midwest. I'm officially from the great state of Wisconsin and grew up in a small little tourism-centric area called Door County, Wisconsin. My family had a little 40-room resort right on Green Bay. And so early start in the hospitality industry and led me down the street to get away from all of it every now and then at a little state park golf course called Peninsula.
Okay.
And so that's where I started the first 20 or so years of my life and went off to college and got some great education in the Wisconsin school system.
Gotcha. So your golf career as a player, what type of player were you? How long did you play the game on a competitive level?
So started off pretty slow. A lot of the kids that I coach now, where I'm at in South Florida, these kids get a lot of resources thrown at them, and so they're playing at elite levels at a much younger age. So I never really had a formal golf lesson until I was probably 22 years old, and at that point I had already turned professional with the PGA. And I was playing over in Australia in the Australian AAA. And so every week they really enforced more of a playing ability screen every single week versus where here in America they have you play a 36-hole, they call it a PAT, a player's ability test. And in Australia, where I was working at the time for a few years, they would make you play every week and you had to hold a 3.9 scoring handicap or better just to maintain your status in the PGA.
Oh, wow.
And so every week I'd play against all the other professionals. It was very much like our sectional events here in the tri-state. And that was really where it kicked off. I got some late lessons and I figured out that, shooting par doesn't necessarily cut it out there. You're not really going to make the PGA Tour shooting par, but you can definitely hit any shot you want and you can definitely show people how to hit those shots.
Absolutely. So when did teaching become a passion for you? When did you know that it was something that maybe you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I went to, like I said, Wisconsin school system. I have a bachelor's degree in golf management. And I originally started as an assistant general manager at a local track back home. And I found out real quick that wasn't really my go.
Right.
It wasn't my forte. And I loved being outside. And I realized that I loved golf because I got to be outside and I got to be part of the golf course. So teaching people, by the way, both my parents are in the public education sector, and my mother was a kindergarten teacher for 30 years. So teaching people, I feel, is kind of in my blood. My grandfather as well was a math teacher. And so I really feel like coaching individuals and helping people with this player progression over the course of so many months and years is really my forte. Helping people develop is something that I really, really enjoy. And sitting behind a desk maybe isn't quite necessarily what I was going for.
Right. A lot of great players aren't necessarily great coaches. How did you learn sort of how to coach and how to make players better?
I had enough bad coaching in my life to know what not to say.
Right.
And when you have people that maybe put you down, there's certain styles of coaching that maybe doesn't create that appropriate synergy between player and coach. And that can really restrict the proper mentality necessary to play this game. And going out, we both know that there's a 15th club in that bag, and that's your brain.
Right.
And so for me, understanding how and what and when to say something is really going to push somebody in the right direction.
Right. Absolutely.
And if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, it could be tragic for one, it could be magic for another, but I don't want to take that 50-50 shot. Let's be sure of ourselves.
All right. Then tell us a little bit about your career as a teacher. Where did you start, and what's kind of been the progression of your career?
Sure. So I started actually teaching in Australia as a AAA professional, and I also taught briefly in New Zealand as well. And I came back to the States, and I taught briefly at a major resort called Hammock Beach in northern Florida. And I proceeded to go down to where my family was on the east coast of Florida, in South Florida, towards Boca Raton. And I started teaching at a golf academy in Jupiter, followed by working for one of my mentors in Miami at Trump Doral.
Gotcha.
And I worked for the Rick Smith Golf Performance Center for a few years. One of my mentors, Henry Young from Michigan, Hall of Famer, really pushed me in the right direction, understanding what to say, when to say it.
Right.
And these guys are extremely good at what they do. So the countless hours of shadowing these individuals really assisted me and molded me into, what I truly aspire to be. And so now the most recent has been almost coming up to 10 years at PGA National Resort, which is the home of the Honda Open.
Right.
And I've been teaching there ever since. Haven't looked back.
Well, then that brings us to here, to the Greenbrier, and let's start there. What did you know about the Greenbrier before you came here? Obviously, in the golf world, it's well known, but what did you know about the Greenbrier?
Tour stop, beautiful, stunning. Now I know that for sure.
Right.
But definitely a change of pace.
Sure.
Change of culture. I needed to get out of what we call the hornet's nest in South Florida for a little while, and I needed to slow down and understand what this place was really about. You do a lot of research, and we're fortunate to have the technology, to do that research before you come here. But I flew up and I did the Hill Herod tour before I got started, and really wanted to see if this was the right fit. And I, immediately knew that I was going to gravitate towards this place.
Right. Well, you're teaching. There's a lot of different ways, as you said, to teach the game. There's a lot of different techniques. What are kind of your overarching philosophies that you try to use with everybody as far as how you teach?
Yeah. So I'm more of a functional movement or motion specialist. I have degrees outside or education past my bachelor's degree. So I'm a Titleist Performance Institute Level 3 golf coach, which is taught by a chiropractor out in California. And I've been privileged to go out there and work with those guys and understand by screening somebody, maybe there's a reason why somebody swings the golf club a certain way. And so understanding how somebody sets up to the ball, how they move in a certain way or form can really dictate what that ball is actually about to do.
Right.
And furthermore, getting injured over the years, has led me to educate myself as well in other areas. And I actually about 5 years ago, I became a postural therapist with the Agostya Institute. And that is, once again, understanding a deeper idea of what the body can do and how it moves.
Well, we're going to put all those skills to the test just a minute. If you're as good as instructors, I think I know you are. You've got to prove it on me, because if there's anybody swing that needs help, it's definitely mine. But before we do that, I wanted to see if we can get to know you on a personal level a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about your family and your hobbies and what you like to do.
Sure. Absolutely. So my wife and my daughter, so my wife's name's Dagny, and my daughter's name, she's 3 years old, her name's Kyla. And we have a 2-year-old mix puppy that came up here with me, and she's getting used to West Virginia. She seems to love it. Obviously, there's a little more room to run out and play out here.
For sure.
So small family, and we like it that way. We're really fortunate, and we're excited to, like I said earlier, kind of have that change of pace. So my wife's from Miami Beach, of all places, and so this is definitely going to be a little bit of a change for her. But as for hobbies, we do like a lot of the same things. We like to hike and fish, and her godfather's actually one of the famous fly fishermen, Flip Pallett. And so I, of course, by default, had to become a fly fisherman after I met her. So that's something that I really look forward to doing around here is,
Absolutely.
Going hiking, bringing the fly rod with me, and and just kind of being near the water, because we're so used to having the ocean by us that I may as well get acquainted with some of the rivers around here.
Absolutely. Great places to fly fish around here for sure. I know you'll enjoy it. How about in the sports world, outside of the world of golf? Are you a fan of any particular teams? What do you like?
Yeah, we're big Miami Heat fans.
Okay.
So as of right now, they're in the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
They're doing pretty well, and we'll see how far they can take it. That's typical. Of course, I'm a PGA golf professional, so we love watching the PGA Tour. Occasionally, I'll catch the Live Golf event on TV every now and then, and there's a couple little other sports here or there. Football is all right. I like to watch it when I have the ability, but usually we're working on Sundays, so
right.
We'll try and watch the Finns or the Green Bay Packers every now and then.
How about in the golf world? Do you have any favorite golfers? Any guys you particularly follow?
Following everybody. Everybody's so unique right now, and everybody's kind of scattering off into different directions at the moment because it's such a unique time, right? With different tours and players, and there's some beautiful, beautiful swings out there. Adam Scott's probably the most beautiful posture and swing on the planet, and he's got all this longevity going for him, right? He'll be here forever. Freddie Couples, kind of the same thing. He's like an ageless wonder, right? We just all strive to swing it like these guys. But growing up, it might be a little odd, but I really loved Paul Runyon. One of my first books, A Short Way to Lower Your Scores. He was only about, I don't know, maybe 5'4", 5'5". He was really, really small guy, and I wasn't a big guy either. It's still not a very big guy.
Right.
And the whole book was centered around short game and getting better with your short game, and he won a few PGA Tour events that way. Couldn't hit the ball out of his shadow, but he could get the ball in the cup.
You talked about some of those beautiful swings. Obviously, there's a guy that's pretty famous around here, Sam Snead, who had a pretty spectacular swing too. Anything you've taken out of his swing that you can apply to what you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, being a functional movement specialist, we look at what's called the kinematic sequence, and that is a sequence of ideas, an order of operations to hit a golf ball with your body. And Sam Snead, to this day, sequenced better than probably anybody on the planet. And that is a timeless motion that we can take and we can analyze for forever.
Right.
And, I'm thankful for that. So there are certain things that he does in his swing that I strive to perform with as well. I don't know if I have the capacity to bring it out to the golf course all the time, but it is poetry in motion.
That's one of the interesting things about golf, isn't it? Like other sports, they change in a lot of ways. In golf, equipment changes, courses change a little bit, but the swing is a swing, and it's like you said, it can be timeless. Some of those guys that were great golfers back in the day could perform just as well out there today if they had the same equipment.
And sometimes longer. We're seeing these new modern swings that sometimes don't hold up with the right body.
Right.
And we see a lot of these guys. Sam was swinging a long, long time.
Right.
And he hit it a really long way.
Absolutely.
And so there's something special about it, and we're learning more.
For sure. Well, it's great getting to know you a little bit. Great to hear your background, and obviously you can tell talking to you that you know your stuff, and I think you're going to be a great addition to the Greenbrier. So we wish you and your family well, and hope you adjust to the area and get to love the Greenbrier as much as we all do. But when we come back here on the Brierchat podcast, we're going to put your skills to the test, see if you can help this terrible swing of mine a little bit as we move forward. Stay with us. Okay, so we've moved from the couch over to the range here, and I am great at talking about the game of golf. I'm great at sitting down and watching the game of golf, but when it comes to actually swinging the club, that's where we get into problems. So let's put your skills to the test. What's kind of the first thing you do with somebody when they show up for a lesson?
Sure. So for me, it's always kind of going through a pre-screening with everybody. So I always like to ask you, what do you do for work? What kind of activities are you doing? Extracurriculars? Do you go to the gym? I don't want to be too nosy.
Right.
Right. And so I always let everybody know, I want you to tell me, okay, how many times do you really go to the gym in the month? Are you doing any other extracurricular activities that get you moving? And also, does anything hurt? Do you know of any physical limitations? And so if there are any physical limitations, now that could be as much as, well, I had something traumatic happen to me and I have a new knee or a new shoulder now, or I don't move very well with this elbow, or they could say, you know what, I got out of bed this morning and my calf is really tight.
Gotcha.
And those little ideas can start adding up to a bigger picture for me. So a lot of the time I'll screen a player, but to compress our timeline, what we're going to do is we're just going to have you hit us some pitch shots. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Where possibly is your weight? What do you feel? Was that a good one? And I want you to rate your shots for me as well on a scale of 1 to 10. So I want to gauge what you think a 10 is or what you think a 5 is, because some people might have different standards than others. And I need to understand who's in front of me, and I got to read the room before I start telling you what to think.
Okay.
And so what I want us to do, let's hit 10 shots. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to do basically a tighter warm-up exercise where we're going to hit one to the right of the basket in front of us, and then you're going to pull another one over, you're going to reset, and you're going to hit another half swing to the left. And we're going to go back and forth for the first 10. And a half swing would just be a roughly waist high to waist high. So I'm also checking, do you know what a half swing is?
Right.
Do you know where that club head is? And we call that club head awareness. If you can't proprioceptively tell me where that club head is, right? If I close my eyes and the club's somewhere other than where you think it is, the feel versus real, then I need to start training you a different way.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's get 10 golf balls out.
This is going to be scary.
And we're going to just get you all lay them out in sets of 2s.
Okay.
And let's just go with our first 10 shots here. And if we want, we can hit the emergency brake anytime we need to, and we can have a discussion about it.
Sounds good.
Well, that's a good start. And when you do hit that one that you really love, I want to know about it. Ooh, we like that one. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think?
I'd say 7.
Okay.
Wow.
So the first thing I want to talk about, let's take a look at your grip, and let's just double check it. So the last thing I want to do is change your grip.
Okay.
But I always like to make sure that there's a couple certain points on the handle that are being used as good levers, and that way we're holding on the club and it's not getting all cattywampus on us, going all over the place. So go ahead, take your grip for me. Let's just double check it real fast. And what I really like about this is you actually have a good V right here. There's not any gapping here. So we always like to close this. So see how I can fit my finger there? So we're going to take this hand off, and all we're going to do is we're just going to, there we go, we tightened it up. And notice how that little V we created is now pointing a little more to your left shoulder. Now, if you release your index finger right here, notice how there's a little gap. So all I want you to do is I want you to make sure this little segment right here on your index finger, that's got a little pad to it. I want to make sure that pad stays on the golf club.
Okay.
So if you were to lift this club up and wave it around, you'd have a direct link from this pad to that club head right there. And so if I take that off and now that's off and we have a gap and you wave it around, notice how it's a little wobbly now.
Right.
So we like having this, we call that a pressure point.
Okay.
We want to make sure that it has enough pressure and stays like that.
Gotcha.
Okay. So now let's get you talking about a little bit more of how do we set up to the golf ball. Okay. So distance from the golf ball. I like to take the right hand, and if you just give me a good 5 finger here, full hand like so, we're going to put our thumb on our belt buckle, and we're going to put the barrel of the club, or the butt of the club, would be on the pinky. And that would be the distance that we want to be from the golf club, so that our hands and arms are hanging from our shoulders.
Gotcha.
When I'm a little too close, I feel like I can't really move the club very well. Right. When I'm too far away from it, I'm reaching for it, and I'm using my hands maybe a little too much.
Gotcha.
So that's why we like to have that nice little happy middle ground, right? So that's a good stance and setup. And then as for how do we get into a good stance, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hinge from the hips. A lot of players, a lot of new players will see them round their upper back, and they'll be kind of sitting down like this, which doesn't look very posturally sound.
Gotcha.
So we like to say we're hinging from the hips. So if you were to take a club, or I'm going to take this dowel here, we would just put it across our hip line, and you would see me hinging from the hips with then a slight little bend of the knees. And so that little hip hinge right there really allows us to kind of feel as if we're in more of an athletic position and also great balance underfoot. So somebody from Australia always said, you're bowing to the queen. And that's what we're doing here. We're not trying to tip and let her hat fall over here. Okay? So now, as for the actual hit, when we start with a newer player, all the way up to about an intermediate player, and this is something that I'll do with an expert player as well, just to make sure that they're less asymmetric, meaning that one side isn't more dominant than the other side. What we'll do is we'll train, and I'm guessing you're right-handed.
Yes.
And you're very right dominant.
Very much.
What we'll like to do is get people to train their left foot to accept the weight necessary to finish your golf swing. So we'll see a lot of players falling onto their back foot with a lot of weight, helping the golf ball into the air.
Right.
And we need to make some backspin happen. We got to get this ball up into the air. We got to create some friction and some lift, and that makes the ball carry into the air. And by doing that, we have to actually feel like we're translating our weight to our left foot.
Gotcha.
So when I start, if I can borrow your club, I'm actually going to put the ball, and I'll give you an acronym. We call it BLT. We say the ball goes towards our back foot. We're going to lean, for the right-handed player, we're going to lean left. And then we're going to say tick, tock. And the reason why we do this is in the PG of America, we have a principle called center of gravity.
Right.
We have to move the center of gravity in front of that golf ball. That way I'm actually hitting the ball first and the ground second. So when I'm doing my little half swing, I'm going to have the ball positioning back. I'm going to be leaning into my front foot. And then I'm going to be saying this auditory feedback, this tick on the way back, and then tock on the way through.
Okay.
By adding that extra pressure onto the lead foot, we should give ourselves more momentum to go towards our target.
Gotcha.
So let's give that a shot.
Okay.
And let's see how much weight we can actually, it's going to feel a bit like a displacement moving forward at first, but it's going to allow us to hopefully find a little bit higher action on that club face. There it is right there. That was beautiful. And not only was that great, you hit yourself a nice little draw. If I want the ball to go a little further, we see that curvature of the ball falling to the left for the right-handed golfer.
Right.
And that's how we get the ball to go far. Right? We hit a little bit higher on that club face, and that ball is turning over to the left, which is actually how the manufacturers meant to build that golf club.
Well,
so there you have it.
Sounds great.
No, that was fantastic.
So one of the other major aspects of what you do out here in a typical golf school is use technology and video to really analyze the swing. So I took a shot just a moment ago. We've got it here on camera. So take me through what you would do with a student.
Yeah, so we shot you on a program called V1, and it's a really useful little resource and teaching tool for me, and helps during our golf schools to really show the student and allow them to understand what they're actually doing. Most people have never seen their golf swing before. They might even have a friend that shot like a little video, but they usually do it from the wrong angle, and it's never really as useful as we want it to be. So we actually shot a video of you swinging the golf club down the line, which is what we call it, which is a nice little view of how that golf ball is going to take off and what you're doing with the golf club. So I'm able to actually draw some lines, and let me go ahead and we'll start our lesson right now. So now we're actually in our lesson, and it's recording everything that I'm saying that can then be sent to your email or to your phone or both. So we enter you in as a student. I'm going to go ahead and just draw a couple of these lines of what we're looking at. We can double check your posture, and we can double check where that golf club is. And as I hit the play button, we're going to be able to see how you actually took that club back. So we took it a little inside. We used our hands. It kind of flipped our hands and elevated them a little bit. And it forces us to swing, as you can see, over this line. So the first move right off the ball, you see your hands go a little higher than your club head.
Right.
We get up to the top of our swing, which you're doing pretty well, but then we use that left shoulder and we get a little too low with the left shoulder, and that delivers the club over the line that I drew on the shaft originally.
Right.
So you can see how this club shot over this line right here, instead of what we wanted to see is you getting up to the top of the swing and watching your hands and club drop back under this way. So we have a little bit of this reverse order of operations like what we discussed earlier. And that's forcing this club to come down a little too steep into the golf ball. Let me get rid of some of these lines. Leaves the club face a little too open. You did a great job of shutting that club face. You can see the toe of the club's kind of pointing a little bit to the left there.
Right.
And we saw we had a little pull bias, which means the ball was getting pulled to the left. And that's typically because somebody's swinging over the top of the swing plane. So that's forcing us to have a little bit too much of a miss to the left and probably a little bit of a slice or a cut to the right. And so how we would fix that in the full swing is, now that you've seen that, we would get maybe a barrier over your shoulder, something that would disallow your hands to go that direction. And we would get you to swing maybe a little bit more on plane. We discussed in the short game idea of you swinging more around yourself and flattening up that swing.
Right.
Really helps us understand the circle versus the V shape that we had created in our swing earlier.
Right. Perfect.
It's a fantastic method.
It is. It's amazing how much you can learn just by watching a video, for sure.
Absolutely.
One thing that we didn't mention before is in your lessons, there are a number of different types of lessons people can have, right? So what all can they do if they're coming out here, they know they need help with their golf game? What all options are available to them?
Well, I'll start with my favorite, of course, and that's a playing lesson.
Right.
There's nothing better than being on the golf course.
Sure.
But we also offer what's called retreats. And retreats would be exactly what we just went through this morning. You have a 9 to 12 schedule, and then we go eat some lunch in Sam Snead's.
Perfect.
And then we're going to go play some golf in the afternoon.
Okay.
And that could be 1, 2, or 3 days. Or if you feel like that's too long of a day, we can also do what we call mini schools, which are just 9 to 12 every morning. And that could be 1, 2, or 3 days as well.
Okay.
Private lessons, of course. And we also do green reading classes and short game schools as well.
Okay. So really, if somebody had any particular aspect of their game that they really felt like they needed to work on, they could come and work on just that part of the game.
There's nothing we can't do.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate you working with us and joining us today. I can tell already by how my swing has improved just with a few times how effective you can be. So we encourage people to come down here, check it out, meet Stephen Cox down here at the Golf Academy at the Greenbrier.
Thanks, Cam.
Thank you. That's going to do it for this episode of the Brierchat. Let us know what you think about it. Leave your comments on Facebook or YouTube. Let us know what you want to see in the future, topics you'd like to see us covered, or anything else, questions you might have for Stephen, for myself. Leave them all there for us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So we'll see you next time on the Brierchat.